Everybody.
Good morning, Rob.
Good morning, Rob.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning, Rob.
Good morning.
Good morning, Ralph.
So I'm ready to take on all objections. I got my black belt on today. What's on your mind? Anybody? All right, the session's officially over. There's no objections. Robert Garber, you witnessed it.
Well, before you got on, there were some objections from the people in Florida about how.
Let me mute everybody and then we'll, all right, what did we have there from Florida, Robert?
It's hot.
Some people were complaining that it's too hot in Florida, so I said we'd be accepting referrals up to New Jersey if they had any clients who were interested.
That's a great opportunity to get more listings. That's what I think, right? It's only going to get hotter in the next few months.
Why do I feel like that's reverse marketing? Like you can get people out of Jersey, but you can't bring them back.
You know, I think the reason why you can't get them back, Ned, is there's no room here for some reason.
That's true.
I think we're going to start seeing the reverse snowbird season in Florida, where in the summer, the Floridians leave Florida during the heat of summer and go to
They go up to Jersey, they go up to the cold, huh? So I have a list of objections, but I didn't want to be biased by my own opinions. So anybody have anything that you're coming across that might be relevant to have the entire group participate in?
Yeah, I do.
Go ahead.
Went on a listing appointment the other day, and then the seller started testing us on, buyer's fee. So he said, so I guess we don't have to pay buyer's brokers anymore, right?
Okay. And what did you say?
I says, well, sorry about that. I said, well, you could pay them whatever you want to pay them. We do need outside help from other brokers to bring us maybe better buyers. If you just rely on me to sell your house, or me and Ryan sell your house, you're limited to your exposure. So we need to participate with MLS brokers. And he goes, okay, well, how much do you think we should pay him? And I said, well, that's up to you. I mean, he goes, well, I'll leave it up to you. What do you think we should pay him? And I says, you could pay him 2, 2.5, or 3%, pick one. And he says, well, how about let's just pay them like 2%. I says, I think you could probably get better reaction at 2.5. So he agreed on that. That's one of the objections I've got so far.
Is there anyone in the slightest fearful of the buyer's agency conversation?
I am.
Okay.
We've been over that yesterday. Yeah.
And then what's the crux of the fear that you have? Just because it's new? Is it based?
I actually never in my career had a buyer sign anything with me ever. I probably had 3 buyers cheat on me in the last, 13, 14 years, which is 3 too many, to be honest. I need to gain this. I have the confidence. I need to gain the self-esteem to speak with the buyers in an intelligent way to say, this is my service. Because to be honest with you, the service that I give my sellers is 180 degrees difference with the service that I give my buyers. It's like, it's apples and oranges, to be honest with you. I feel the way that I speak with my sellers versus buyers. So
you treat your sellers better?
It's not better. It's different. It's both of them I put on a pedestal. I really treat my clients. I mean, I put them on a pedestal and I communicate every single day. Even if I have nothing to say, I communicate with them, but it's different. My words, I choose my words differently with a seller versus with a buyer. I mean, it's totally different words. So when I talk to my buyer, I need to find those words now. And I need to find the word. I think I have the words for the seller, but not yet the buyer.
So Ned, I'm gonna try to build the foundation for those conversations that you're looking for.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna say that like the flow or the charisma in a conversation is the echo of your confidence. Okay, and what our industry is looking for is confidence and direction on how to handle this, right? Because I think the majority of us are very confident and comfortable with the seller conversation, but this is a new conversation that we're entering into, and it's new in two ways, because the seller conversation is even pivoting a little bit, right? Because the sellers might come to you and say, hey, I heard I don't have to pay commissions to the buyer. So the difference between me and you is twofold. One, I don't have to go out there and do it unless you invite me. And number two is I look forward to those objections because I like to be over prepared. Now, in the buyer conversation that I think you're referring to, Netta, I think part of the part of the mixed emotion that you have is that you've not been traditionally accustomed to preparing for a buyer conversation as you have for a listing appointment. Because we see that a listing appointment is like when they sign on the dotted line, figuratively, then that's when we've made the transaction. The buyer relationship has never been that way. It's always been, let me see if I can, get them over the finish line by running the marathon. Whereas the listing is the sprint to get the signature to start that relationship contractually. And, up until very recently, there's very little difference between a listing and a closing, because most listings wind up being closings, and oftentimes you'll get some buyers from that and maybe even a listing in the neighborhood. So, I would argue that a listing is better than, if somebody just paid you that commission up front, because going through the process gives you more opportunities to market and grow your business. If that makes any sense.
Absolutely.
So I'm going to give you a way of understanding it. And I've heard agents and your peers and maybe even some of you talk to your clients this way, like, you need to understand, or you have to understand this is the way it goes. And I think that creates resistance in and of itself. If you tell me I need to do something, I'm pushing back. Like, you've got me up against the wall, and I'm saying I don't need to do anything. But I think we should educate our consumers on what's going on, and that's really where the value is. Now, if you have the confidence to educate properly, you're going to be irreplaceable. Okay, they're not going to look to cheat on you. And Netta, you had 3 buyers that cheated on you. I'm going to put a little asterisk there that you know of. Okay, because there may be people that bought and didn't work with us that we don't discover. So here's a foundational change. Right now, I'm going to educate you, and I'm going to suggest that we educate our clients that there are 3 contracts now that define a transaction. Okay, there are 3 contracts that define a transaction. Does anybody know what those are? So the first contract is the buyer's agency agreement, which is the agreement between the seller, the buyer and the broker, or the buyer and the agent, and it gives the broker exclusive representation of a buyer and shows the marketplace the seriousness of the buyer to have entered into that agreement. The second one is the listing agreement between the seller and the broker or the agent. Gives permission, authority, and fiduciary duty to prepare, price, position, market, and negotiate a sale on the seller's behalf. And then the third contract is what we traditionally view as the contract between the buyer and the seller. So does dumbing it down like that help anybody? Because for me, and I'm trying to figure out how to explain it, I think that breaking it down into 3 separate components to a transaction was helpful for me.
That definitely helps.
Anybody have any thoughts on that?
Oh, this is Francis. Just wondering, when does the consumer information statement come in? Shouldn't it come in earlier? And then before the buyer agency agreement?
So the consumer information statement is it's the defining document for us here in Jersey that you need to provide them with before you have any substantial conversation. So yes, that is the prerequisite, so to speak.
Mhm.
But in terms of, addressing like motivation and helping consumers understand, I think consumers are confused by the noise. And I think that we need to have, 200% grasp on what's going on. We need to up our communication game, and, we need to live in a world of abundance. There are a few agents that in the past 12 to 18 months have made massive shifts in the way that they work with their buyers and set the right expectations. Okay. Because they got tired of making 3, 5, 7, 10 offers and sometimes never even getting a sale completed. Having the buyer brokerage agreement conversation gives the ability to share with them what's really happening in the marketplace, right? Because the customers don't know what's really happening. They think they know, but they don't. And sometimes they know, but knowing doesn't give them the strategy to be successful, right? Working with buyers and allowing them to deploy a failed strategy multiple times, in my opinion, is not, consistent with our fiduciary duty to help them achieve their goal, right? I mean, if we don't have the courage or the skill to educate them on what it takes to be a successful buyer in this market and the market that's going to come in a year and in 5 years, we have to be able to interpret market conditions and educate them on how to be a successful buyer. And what do you need to be a successful buyer in your marketplace? Who wants to share that with me? Nobody. You know what does it take to be successful in Avenel, Bobby? What does it take to be a successful buyer there?
Well, you gotta be, well, even if you offer full price, no guarantee you're gonna get the house. I did see some offers recently where the buyer was willing to pay the transfer tax.
So getting creative on terms outside of just the sales price. Here's something that I think might be good for
meetings.
Here's something that might be good for that conversation is the list price is just an invitation for offers. It doesn't mean that that's the acceptance price, right? So, I think if we educate our buyers that, the last 5 homes that sold in the first 2 weeks are selling for X. And if you want to be a successful buyer, what do you think we need to do? I actually have a couple of things that I want to share with the group, which is kind of external evidence, because I know the media doesn't go and say, hey, it's a great time to buy a house. That doesn't really get a lot of clickbait. That doesn't create the controversy that they need to get more attention to what they're doing. But I'm going to take a moment. I'm going to play a very short video clip, and I'm going to put that video clip on this document that's attached here in case you want to refer back to it. All right, let's go here. Let me find it first, and then we'll go.
Hey, Rob, while you're bringing that up, I'll just share that to answer your question, my belief is it's the agent who knows they can. That's what a successful buyer's agent is.
Cool. Oh, here it is. Make sure there's no commercials at the beginning here, which there are. All right. All right. Can you guys see the screen?
It's black.
Yeah. Yes?
Yes.
Okay.
And real estate legend, entrepreneur extraordinaire, Shark Tank star, and now soon-to-be star of the Barbara in Your Pocket. At current rates, it was at 5%. Do you think mortgage rates have also peaked, Barbara?
No, they have peaked. Yeah, most people believe that. You know, none of us are fortune tellers, but everyone's expecting that prices on mortgages will come down to 6%, and maybe even a little lower than that. Some pundits are saying about it. I don't really know. But what I do know is they will come down. And when they come down, everybody's going to hear the call and everybody's going to be out looking for a house again.
You know what's amazing, Barbara, is I look at some of these areas around the country that people moved to during the pandemic, and prices in some cases literally doubled. Price per square foot,
Yes,
maybe it was
right.
400. Now they're trading at 800. Can you help us make sense of that?
There's no sense, rhyme or reason to it at all. They're just lucky people. And on top of the luck of buying a house that's appreciated so much, they were helped with 2%, 3% interest rates. But if you're one of the people thinking, gosh, is that train going to come in for me? It's never going to come again. Interest rates are never going to come down that low to 2 or 3%, 4, and maybe even 5%. But here's an interesting thing that I only discovered this last week. I looked at the average interest rate in the last 50 years in America, and it was almost 8%. And yet people relatively are seeing our current interest rates as a lot of money. They're really not. They're simply.
So I don't want to bore you with this whole video, but basically, you know, Barbara Corcoran, and there's a more recent update from that about Barbara talking about if you wait on the sidelines, you know, what's going to happen is there's going to be a tsunami of buyers. You're going to wind up in the same situation that you were in the heart of the pandemic. Okay. You're going to be paying more for the homes, and it's just fundamentally a bad idea. Educating the buyers on that buyer's consultation data. There's, I think, 70 million Xers and millennials that are in the next 5 years are going to be in the 30 to 35 year range. Household formations, 85% of them want to buy a house. There's, in a good year, 6 million homes sold. So if you do the math for buyers, it's likely not going to get better or substantially better for them than it is now. And it's like trying to time the price of a stock. You know, if you bought the stock now versus in 2 weeks, 5 years from now, you're going to be better off having bought it instead of trying to time it and pick the bottom. So I think we can use outside sources and, you know, even some celebrity to share that, you know, buying a house is, you know, it's always the right time for us in the business. But honestly, I don't feel like a salesperson, because I think buying a house, you know, changes your identity. It changes the trajectory of your wealth for your life. You know, I'm going to keep repeating this stat until everybody knows it cold, but homeowners are 40 times wealthier than renters. Google it. Have your client Google it on their iPhone. It says the value, the net worth of an average homeowner in the US is 400,000. The net worth of an average renter is 10,000 and change. It's not twice. It's not 3 times. It's not even 5 times. It's 40 times the net worth when you become a homeowner. Okay. And I don't know where I got this stat, but about a year and a half ago, I looked up statistics about people at retirement age. Okay. And in the US, and this is less than 2 years ago, so it's probably still relevant. When people retire, they have more net worth in their home than they have in their retirement account or pension. So you can put aside money for 20, 30, 40, 50 years while you're working. Chances are the equity appreciation in your home is going to be greater than your 401k or your retirement account. Okay. I don't know if that surprises, I don't know if that impresses anybody. And to the extent that you're a married couple and your appreciation is 500,000 or less, it's completely tax-free. If you've built up your appreciation by trading up 2 or 3 times, you can recognize up to 500,000 for a married couple every 2 years, I believe. And, 401ks are tax deferred in most cases. Okay, so you can put the money away now and not pay tax on it. And then when you take the money out years later, you're going to pay income tax theoretically at a lower level. Or I think there's a Roth IRA is like the reverse of that, where you pay the tax now and then you pull it out tax free. But there's nothing better than equity in a house where it's tax free across the board if you do it right.
But Rob, the issue is that the media just scares everyone away. I try my best to be as positive as I can, sending out notices and my constant contact every week and letting buyers know that this is a great time to buy. Don't be afraid to buy. But when you listen to CNN and Fox News and you go on YouTube, 90% of everything that I hear is so negative, it scares buyers away. So I don't know when that's going to turn around, and I don't know how we can get to the top of the mountain to shout, hey, it's okay.
Okay, so Ron, I think that consumers, when they hear now's a great time to buy, it looks transparently motivated by our own pocketbook. Okay, and for me, that's not my style. I'm all about education, so I might take the time to say something like this instead, Ron. All right, and with the buyer's agency, this is the perfect time. Hey, Ron, has anyone taken the time to sit you down and walk through what it takes to be a successful buyer in today's market?
Sounds good.
Right? Instead of it's a great time to buy, and Ron, I say it with love and fierce passion, but I hear that as you want to make a commission, right? It's always a good time to buy with them damn realtors. Okay. But when you sit somebody down and you educate them, I think the decision is going to be, in almost every case, it's the right time to buy. A few fringe cases, if you're only going to be there for a year or two, maybe you don't want to buy, right? Maybe if you can't afford it, you don't want to buy, right? You don't want to put somebody in over their head. But this conversation is a lot more than bedrooms and bathrooms and square footage and basements, right? This conversation goes much deeper. Okay. And I'm just reimagining it in my own mind. And this is where I'd like, your lending partners or whoever you refer to be, next leveling it as well. And having conversations, which I've not heard, and I've just imagined these in my scary head, is if I have a fireman and a teacher, right, struggling to buy their first home, and you know what? When they go to make that purchase, it's probably going to be uncomfortable the first year or two. But if I'm asking them, hey, Ron, can you tell me a little bit about what your income expectations are over time? I know from when I used to be in the lending business that teachers and union workers know exactly what their increase is going to be in 1, 2, and 3 years for the most part. There are some that work without a contract, but they become a tenured at year 7 or whatever it is, and they get a big raise. At year 12, they get a big step up in their pay raise, right? But if we can educate them that you're at year 6 and next year you're getting a big raise, you might have to struggle a little bit for this year. You might have to dip into your savings, but you know what's going to happen next year? Rent's going to go up and your mortgage is going to stay the same, right? And we can educate them on, if you wanted to have a fixed payment, right, or a fixed percentage, maybe in year 12, which is only 4 years from now, you can apply that increase in your pay to paying down the principal. And by the way, Ron, I can get your mortgage paid off in 19 and a half years by the same money you would have paid in rent. And by the way, if property appreciation is 4 or 5%, I can tell you exactly how much extra equity you'll have from the property appreciation and the amortization of a loan. I don't think buyers agents are doing that for their clients. I think we're order takers, and I'm sorry if I offend anybody by doing that, but my goal is to get you to think a little bit differently. Okay, in 5 years, almost everything that happens is favorable for a homeowner, right? Inflation, which is top of mind right now, people who own assets, appreciating assets, do better in inflationary times, right? So, and most people, when they buy, probably felt pretty uncomfortable about that first year's worth of payments because they stretched a little bit. But in year 3, when their wages go up, in year 5, when their wages go up, they're like, this is the best decision I ever made, right? So I'm challenging everybody to change the context of the conversation that we're having. And that starts from, the phone call, Ron, and saying, hey, now's a great time to buy, say, has anyone taken the time to sit you down and walk you through what it takes to be a successful buyer in today's market, or even to determine if buying is right for you now? Okay. If you like this, it's on the paper that's attached to the document that I sent out. The difference between a script and authentic conversation is 2 things: practice, understanding it yourself, and it's the tonality in your delivery. Because you can say the same thing and it can have a completely polar effect on people. Whether you tone up or you tone down at the end of the conversation. I mean, the delivery and the tonality is what makes a comedian successful, right? They know how to deliver a joke. Okay. If it wasn't that skill that they had that makes them millions of dollars, Ron, you could be a comedian and not have to sell real estate. You can just read the jokes and the punchlines, but it doesn't work. It's a skill. Nobody thinks that they can go in and, act in a $100 million or $10 billion movie production, right? Because you need the skill set in order to, act the part, right? It's not just reading the lines.
Yeah, that's why my role play class I had yesterday, the agents that attended there were excellent. I mean, we role played what to say to agents. I mean, what to say to buyers and sellers also, which, we went through a list of things that we can do, what we can't do. And a lot of the agents they role played great and they feel real comfortable. But to get to your point, yes, is to try to be more positive. I probably would turn it around on my approach with buyers rather than saying it's a great time to buy, is to explain, like you just said, because that makes sense. And I think it's more sincere.
Plus, now with the buyer's agency, it's an invitation for that, right? Yeah. Hey, Ron, has anyone taken the time to sit you down and walk you through what it takes to buy a home?
Yeah.
Has anyone done that? No. Well, if you'd like, I believe that now is a unique opportunity to buy, but let's sit down, let's figure out if it's right for you and your family. Right? So it's not the words, it's the tonality, it's the whole package. Okay. What to say?
I also wanted to, I'm
Good.
sorry to interrupt, but I also wanted to add to when you said about a comedian and how it's about timing. It's also, I reveal certain facts about my clients, whether they're a buyer or a seller. The facts are going to be different. During the process, I don't just give all of the facts away at, on the first day. I time it and round 1, these are the facts that I need to reveal to the other side when I'm submitting my offer. Round 2, these are the facts that I want to continue to reveal to the other side during, after the home inspection. Just certain that I want to change the tone strategically in order to give me the upper hand to negotiate. But I also want to, it's, I don't know how to say it, but timing is indeed very important.
No, I mean, it's, we're not door openers, we're communication experts, right? And we have to know our material in order to communicate it. But I think the saddest part is the people who are excellent at what they do, but they fell short at the final mile, which is the communication, right? And that's a shame. I wanted to share something that,
Rob,
yeah,
I know I sound awful. I wanted to add something. Communication is key. And I think I agree with you 110%. And I think what we're lacking is believing in ourselves. You know, it is an opportune time for them to buy now because we all know the interest rates are going to go down. Not a whole lot, but even if they go down a little, that's going to stimulate the market more. There's going to be more competition, and they're going to end up paying more for a home that they could have bought maybe a month ago or 2 months ago at a more reasonable price. And they're losing the opportunity of having that equity fall into their pockets.
yeah, and it's communication.
It's everything. And we have to be sincere when we talk to people. We have to really believe what we're saying. And I think that's part of the hesitation of the communication. If you're not buying into the reality of the situation, you're missing the mark.
So you gotta be sincere. You know,
Yep.
Well, the thing is that we all getting here, getting hung up on this interest rate, and the interest rate is just a number, a factor, of course, there. But if the interest rate is so high, the price is going to come down, and the benefits for the buyer is that they have more choice that they can look at, and they don't have a multiple offers that they don't have. So it's like going to an auction that there's one house and 20 buyers. It better go to an auction when they have 10 houses and one buyer. You have more choice and you get a better deal. And when the interest rate, should they come down, whenever they come down, you refinance it. Because as we know, you're not married to the interest rate, but you're married to the house. And you get in the house that you want in this kind of market.
I agree with you 100%, Tony. Very good point.
It's
know,
like when people are going to buy a car, they don't care how much the car is that they're buying, how much down, how much a month. That's all. I was having a discussion, a conversation with a young lady this past week that she's paying $2,000 or $2,500 in rent. And I told her, I said, well, you paying the rent, are you staying here, you know, for the next 3 to 5 years? And she said, yes. Well, then you need to buy, you are candidate to buy a property there based upon your qualification or whatever the bank gives you, then you'll find a property that you can buy in that price range. And you'll have all these benefits that you have by owning the piece of property. But right now, you throwing that money away. What benefits do you have? None. She said, well, then you make sense. You know, I need to talk to the banker and see how much I can qualify for. You know, because a lot of people, they are also, they get hung up. Oh, I have to pay off this. I have to pay off that. No. You're already living. You're living somewhere. You're not living under a bridge. So you're throwing the money away. You need to throw the money away. Just put the money to work for you.
yeah.
You know, I come to the conclusion that the interest rate has not been the problem. If there was a problem, why do we have so many buyers out there? I mean, I know there's not a lot of inventory, but I think it's just a roadblock that we could talk around.
I agree. I always tell my buyers, who cares about the interest rate? You just change the, you know, your criteria. You still can buy. What you buy is important. You refinance later. Yeah, it hasn't really. I don't think it has.
I have two things to say about interest rates. Number one, I've been doing this since 1980 when interest rates went from 8% to 21%. So 8% is nothing. It's a great interest rate in the scheme of things. You have to think long-term with real estate. So, and the prices are going up faster than the interest rates. So you need to get a hold in the ground because your rent is going to go up worse than the interest rates are. So, because the landlords know that. And the other thing is you can say to the buyer, and I've been practicing this script this week. So yes, rates have gone up. However, you don't have to pay current market interest rates. One of the advantages I give my clients is that when they work with me and my lender, we're able to help them pay below market rates. Then you go into the short buy down.
So,
I'd like to add something, if I may.
sure.
Something I've done, and I share with you in the years of experience. I've been doing this since 1984. And I too joined into the market when we were in a refi boom because rates had dropped down to 8.5. So I would say to my first time buyers, I'd determine what the principal and interest payment was going to be. And then I would look at what tax bracket they were in. And I would then do the calculation based on their tax bracket of what their new principal and interest payment would be based on tax deductibility. So for example, if their payment was $1,000 a month and they were in the 25% tax bracket, I would say basically you're going to get about 25% off your mortgage payment. So instead of it feeling like $1,000, you're now going to have tax deductibility. So your payment's really only going to feel $50. And you could go to your employer and raise your deductions so that they take less out. So at the end of the year, instead of getting money back, you'll have more money in your pocket to work with each month. And I've done this. I've reached to their accountants, figured out their tax rate, had them increase their dependents so that they have more money in their pocket every month. And when you actually do that calculation with them, with their accountant, or I go to my accountant and get the correct formula, 9 times out of 10, it's very minimal compared to what they're paying in rent right now. And the difference in the benefit to today versus back in the 80s and 90s is rent back then wasn't as high as it is today. When I see what people are paying in rent, I'm flabbergasted to understand why they wouldn't purchase now, regardless of what rates are doing, because their rent is so high. And with all the programs we have and working with us as a lender, now, first time buyer programs, CRA programs, down payment assistance programs. I mean, you can virtually get someone into a house with very little money out of pocket. Of course, if you can get the seller to accept it, that's the real challenge. So that's my 2 cents today.
Hey, Rob.
Yes.
Let me know if this should be something I bring up at the very end, because I don't want to stop your momentum. But I wasn't on the call first thing this morning because I had an offer accepted and they signed it like 9:35, but it's a 1.5% interest. 1.5% commission, which is up my crawl, but I did it right for my client. But I have another way that us buyer agents, because that's generally what I am, and I know a lot of people on this phone are, a way to fight back a little bit. Because I feel like the buyer's agents are the ones that are really having the hard time here. Where the listing agents who do mostly listings, this whole thing's not that big a deal to them. Is this a time I can bring up an idea I had, or should I wait to the end?
No, let's bring it up now.
All right. So this is 1.5%. It makes it even worse. It's a Zillow lead that's 1.5% interest, but commission. So I can't do it now, but I thought about this. Why can't we as buyer's agents, when we see, and this may happen come after July or August when it starts, 1.5% interest, write the offer up and say, hey, we're going 80,000 over asking or whatever it may be, but at I want 2%.
Hold on, let me just mute everybody else.
Why can't we fight back and say, I'm not taking one?
Yeah. You got to unmute yourself, sir. Rob, you put your camera on, not your audio.
Speak. Here we go. Now you can hear me, right?
Yep.
Okay. So why can't we, when we write up the offer and it's 1.5% or something, say we want 2%. We're not taking 1.5. We're going 80,000 over asking or whatever it may be. Our offer still could be the best offer with the seller paying 0.5% more. It still may be beneficial to him. And also, quite honestly, in this particular situation, what I'm really angry about, I know for sure almost that the commission that the listing agent is putting out is 4%, and I'm getting 1.5%, and that really pisses me off. If it was 3%, I'd be fine with it. And it may make the listing agent, the seller may not even know the listing agent is paying out 4, but only giving less than half of it to the buying side.
So Robert, so Robert, let me jump the goat on this here, whatever they say. But the new paradigm is solving this problem precisely, right? And you can start doing those buyer's agency agreements, and then you can say, look, I have a buyer agency agreement. We're requesting a 0.5 point an extra half-point contribution towards the buyer's compensation requirement to you.
So you're saying write it up, but we leave the 1.5% alone, and then tell in there say that we want the seller to contribute 0.5 point.
As a sales guy. But I mean, like, it's hard to do when you don't have the buyer's agency agreement initiated up front.
Right.
Okay, but if you do the buyer's agency agreement up front, you can then build it in as a concession. I think you're in a really strange space right now. But why not practice getting these buyer agency agreements done now? And that
Yeah, we're in the limbo stage.
Robert, that would solve that problem. And I think now that this is coming to light, I think that the listing agents are getting to be a little bit more aggressive with the imbalance that they're offering.
Yeah, if you can get 2.5% from your buyers on a buyer's agreement, if the seller's only asking or only giving a 1% or 1.5%, you know that you have the 2.5 from the buyer is going to pay you.
So
say that again, because if the listing agent's getting 2.5 and we're getting 1.5 as a buying agent, repeat that again, whoever just said that.
Yeah, so if you have an agreement with your buyer, Rob, you could probably reiterate this but if you can get 2.5% on your buyer's agreement, your buyer is going to pay you 2.5% when they buy property, then whatever concession the seller gives, you still got the 2.5% that you're guaranteed from your buyer.
Well, that's this particular case. My buyer is putting down 7%. They don't even have it yet. They're getting money sent over from Turkey, where they're from. I don't want to get into the weeds with this one, but a lot of buyers, first time they don't have it. They just don't have it.
Right.
And it's
yeah. I mean, Robert, we're going down like a
rabbit hole.
Yeah, it's a rabbit. It's not going to serve us. But the buyer's agency agreement in 2 months, or 3 months, worst case, I would start using them now. And it's a absolute excuse to say, hey, Robert, has anyone taken the time to sit you down and walk you through what it takes to be a successful buyer in this environment?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Instead of running and showing them houses, then most of our conversations are around the actual writing of the offer. It's not setting the expectation in advance. And there's an opportunity in changing the order of how we do things. Okay.
All right. This is also a select agent, by the way. But anyway, I'll leave it at that. All right. Thank you.
All right. So our buyer's appointment, when we sit them down, there's the tax deduction, right? There's capital gains. We're the only country that has 30-year fixed rate mortgages. Okay. We'll talk about volatility. Okay. If the rates go up or down, right? Do you think some people are waiting because they think rates might come down? We're going to talk about that. If people knew rates were going up, they'd probably buy now, right? But it's really the perfect storm to buy now because volatility is their friend. If in the future rates go higher, they're locked in. If in the future rates go down, Ron, would you be open to refinancing if rates dropped? I mean, I think most people would do that, and I think our lenders also need to maybe change the way that they conduct their business. Instead of sending them a link to fill out an application, set up an in-person meeting or a Zoom meeting. Okay, I was watching a I guess it was originally a podcast with a company called The Mortgage Coach. They were talking to a very successful agent in Virginia, and part of their process of working with buyers was an in-person or a Zoom meeting where they explained all the attributes of mortgage financing. Okay, you have, in most cases, you put down 10% and you get 100% of the appreciation. Okay, they use an analogy of, hey, Mr. Glenn Baker, if I was going to come over there and I wanted to be your business partner, could I put in 10% and could I get all of the profit? Does that sound like a good deal for you?
Sign me up.
I mean, it's so ridiculously one-sided in favor of the buyer, right? You can put down 10%, and if that thing goes up 50%, I mean, there's no even reasonable way of calculating that. It's just so insane. And on top of that, Glenn, I get all the tax benefits. You don't, right? If the property appreciates, I sell it, I get it tax-free. I have leverage. I control the options. I can prepay it if I want, or I can pay the minimum. You know, does anybody take the time to understand what the power of compounding is? So if your property appreciates 5% a year, by year 5, it's appreciating 5% on the appreciated value. Okay, so if you have somebody that bought a house 25 years ago and paid 200 for it, and it's now worth 800, and it's appreciating at 5%, it's appreciating 5% of the market value, not what you paid for it. I mean, we need to have these conversations and not assume that our buyers are aware of it. Okay, and then we need to be masterful at understanding them ourselves. And I'm not suggesting that, you know, all of us on the real estate side need to master the numbers on the finance side, but I think we need to have a good handoff with our lending partners. Okay, and instead of a mortgage, instead of a loan officer, right? They should be a mortgage advisor, right? Because a loan officer is like a clerk that just goes in and quotes a rate and then delivers what you ask for. But an advisor is somebody that educates you about what your options are.
Rob, we had in our training for the buyers, in our training for the buyer's guide, we talked about having a buyer's seminar, which our title company and our mortgage companies could support for us, and inviting buyers in to explain them the process, let them visit with a lender, let them visit with the title company. I think that would be very beneficial for us. If we only got 10 people to show up, 5 of them would probably buy from us, you know? So I think that's another option. I have some flyers for buyers seminars. I'll send them to you and you can attach them to your program if you want. But I think that's something that would be a win-win for us, as trying to be educators and to give knowledge and information instead of being so much of a salesperson.
That would be great, Colleen.
Yeah.
Do that.
And Rob, just to comment on your topic where you're saying the then versus now, or like the buy now, buy later. If agents are going out and they don't have the Palm One app in their hand for that, you are severely at a disadvantage, right? Right, because you can right in front of the person put in the metrics and estimate it out and not have to know a thing about the numbers. And those two scenarios, I use them all the time. And I will tell you, I don't ever talk about interest rates. I can't remember the last time I talked about an interest rate with a client ever. I talk about the home, the scenario, what we have right now. I control the narrative and I don't let them bring me down this path. So, but that Palm One, I mean, you pop open the numbers and you show it to them right in there. The math is the math. You can't change it. You can't fool around with it, right? It is what it is. It makes sense or it doesn't.
Yeah, let your mortgage broker take care of that. Yeah.
Now, if we step out of the, you know, the positioning that we're talking about now, right? And we look at it from what's the downside to buying a home. The downside really only is if you're going to be selling it in a short period of time. I really, honest to God, can't think of a downside to owning. I mean, you get to write off the interest and the property taxes. You get to get tax-free capital gains every other year. You get to utilize leverage, right? You have the option of prepaying at your discretion. You can take a 30-year mortgage and as your income goes up, probably pay it off in 19 years with the same percentage of your income, right? So if you're comfortable paying 30% of your income towards your mortgage, if we escalate that payment as your income goes up, you know, that's going to crush, you know, the amortization, and you're going to pay that thing off so much quicker, right? You have the pride of ownership, you have stability. You know, if you're a renter, right? If you think back to when you rented a place, I remember when I rented a place, like I would do things to it. When I was in college, you know, I rented a place, I painted, I fixed it up, you know, I probably spent the equivalent of a couple of grand in today's dollars. And I was just a, you know, college student in New Brunswick. I'm improving somebody else's house, you know? Because that's how I want to live. And then the landlord says, this place looks nice, I'm gonna raise your rent. Right? Is that a way to manage your lifestyle? Right? And how about control your destiny? I'm putting that down because you know the landlord can decide they want to sell the place, right? What do you have to do?
And move.
Right? If you own a place, you move when you want to, right? You don't move when the landlord says I want to sell it. So I think we take for granted a lot of these the merits that are here, and we really didn't go down as much of the objection handling. You know, I'm comfortable with where the conversation went, but you know, I was looking to get some more individual objections that we could address, but I think highlighting and changing the expectation of a consumer is really something that, you know, I think we have a fiduciary duty to do. It's not just to open doors and say, how much do you want to spend? Right. And, you know, with the Palm Agent app blend, you can much easier explain the pain of waiting or the cost of waiting. Right. I mean, if I had a coin and I said to you, Tony, I'm going to flip the coin, heads or tails, you call it, but you win both times, you would love that bet, right? If interest rates go up, you got a fixed rate. If interest rates go down, you refinance. You can't lose. Almost seems illegal, doesn't it?
I still would like to talk about the buyer's contract because if buyers end up cheap, buyers don't care. Okay, sure, I'll sign. They're not going to take it as serious. All right, I'll sign. Then they go to an open house and they sign with another agent. What happens then? I still need to learn about all of that
All right.
to
So
know
Netta,
how I'm protected.
so Netta, I think that we need to have a better buyer's consultation, buyer's appointment. We need to have a better signing ceremony, for lack of a better definition, right? And
Yeah.
basically, you know, if they understood what we did for them, I don't think they would cheat on us. And if they are those type of people, I think that there's so many buyers out there, team, we can go pick somebody else to work with.
It's not that they don't understand the value. It's that they're not going to take this contract as serious as they should. And just another agent is going to sneak this in while writing up a contract. You know, they go to an open house. Oh yeah, you know, I'd like to, you know, put an offer in. Okay, I'll write up the contract for you, you know, because now during open houses, these buyers, I know in California, some of the agents are making these buyers sign the agreement before they step foot into the open house.
They don't have to. It's not required.
So Netta, you know, we need to improve our conversation. We need to improve our presentation, set better expectations, right? And we need to choose who we work with. Okay.
No, I understand, but what happens? Let's say the buyer got tricked from the agent or buyer didn't know, and you know, what happens then? How am I protected with that contract? I don't think I am. And that's fine. It's kind of like, you know.
Well, buyers can sign multiple buyer's agreements with different agents. It's just that, like Rob said, you have to impress them on what you can do for them.
No, but can they?
Well, I mean, you know, if it's in the same area, then it's the same conflict you have if you list your house twice. It's not allowed. It's a little bit harder to enforce because, you know, if you have a listing and you see another sign go on it, you might be a little alerted to it, or you see it hit the MLS. But buyers don't. It's not as transparent. But
is NAR going to go up to fight for us when that does happen? There's, you know, a buyer signs 5 contracts with 5 different agents.
So Netta, let's focus on the positive to it, and you know that's why Colleen,
we'll cross that bridge later. Okay.
Colleen, Marilyn, and I are here to, you know, we have your back when those things happen. But there's a whole world of discussion that, we had at one point 104 people on here that I think everybody got at least one or two ideas, even if you've been one of the most experienced people in the industry, on how to communicate the value proposition and how to overcome objections without being, a transparent salesperson. And Ron, I love the idea that it's the right time to buy, and I believe it, but I just think it's the wrong way to message it. Like, you know what? Hey, has anyone taken the time to sit you down and explain to you what it takes to be a successful buyer now and to determine if that's right for you? I'm like so much more impressed if somebody said that to me than it's a great time to buy, right?
I agree.
I think Renee Stone's 2 cents is worth $1 million.
There you go, Renee.
Oh,
You're charging.
thank you.
You're
Thank
charging.
you. You made my day.
You're charging too little. You're worth $1 million for those comments.
Yeah, well, in this market,
So-
I hate to say, we're all charging too little.
From what I understand about the agreement, just about the only thing that I think is really enforceable is if your buyer ends up purchasing a home that you already introduced them to and showed them.
Right, you still get paid on it.
That I believe is definitely enforceable. The rest of it, I'm not sure about.
So, and Jeff, I'm looking at it from a different perspective, and good contracts make good friendships. I agree with that. But I think that, Glenn was alluding to this in some of the stuff he spoke about when you provide, the pathway and they believe that you're the best strategy, there's going to be less breakage of people going to other places. Okay. And part of that is not, I'm not buying that, oh, it's the buyers, they're liars, they're not loyal. I'm saying that we need to look in the mirror and say that a lot of the times it's because we haven't clearly communicated that we're the obvious choice for them. Okay. And that's a hard one to look at. But in reality, if I know that I'm buying a property in an air park and you're the expert, I'm not going to go to anybody else because you've taken the time to explain that to me, that there's nobody better. And all of us have our own, our expertise. And if we can articulate that and share the value proposition, I'm not worried about the Netta, the one person that goes off and does something without you. Or I'm not worried about these fringe cases because, there are always fringe cases, right? There are fringe cases where that's why we have, hearing panels to determine procuring cause, right? Because we don't always agree, or our clients, and most procuring cause issues are usually the client, doing something that puts two brokers at a conflict, right?
Right.
So I want to know, would anybody be interested in like an in-person workshop with some role playing, some material?
Yes,
maybe
that's a
even
great
some,
idea.
maybe even some material that we can customize through our offshore staff to make it custom to you so that we can have these conversations. And I think we have an absolute gold mine. If we go through everybody from March 15th, when we shut down from COVID or whatever that date is, up until now, all the buyers that didn't buy with you and still haven't purchased yet, we have a gold mine, every one of us. I mean, even if you're the best agent, you probably have more than a handful of serious buyers that, either renewed their lease and we forgot about them or basically gave up on the process. And if we can re-educate them, through a very specific process, we're going to win. And we're going to win by doing good, not by, cold calling 40,000 people. We're going to communicate to people that we know have a need, and we can educate them and help them decide whether or not this is something that they must have. Because I know that every one of you on this call, if somebody must have a home, if they want to buy a home, we all know the process. It's just we haven't perfected the communication of how to get that job done. Okay? And sometimes we don't want to give them their real information, which is, if there are 11 people interested in this house, Colleen, maybe 7% over ask price isn't getting the job done, right? If we go to 11% over ask, I think we have a really good shot at getting it. And in 10 years, that's going to be insignificant that you paid an extra 4% in 2024. It's not going to matter.
Absolutely.
Okay. So I hope that this was, I learned from all of you because this went in a little bit of a different direction. For Florida, I have a couple of things where I looked up on US News and World Report. Florida's #1 state for both the economy and for schools, which kind of surprised me from US News and World Report. So I'm working on building up some information that statewide is helpful for all of you. And then in terms of like brand, I'm going to be coming out with some research from the Real Trends report. But I'm proud to say I haven't done all the data yet for Florida, but in New Jersey, this group of people are part of an organization where on the Real Trends list, I want you to listen to this. On the Real Trends list, which is an independent report of top producing agents, RE/MAX as a brand had more individual agents on the Real Trends list in the state of New Jersey than number 2, 3, 4, and 5 combined.
Wow.
Then combined.
Must share.
Right? So I am gathering this information and I want to have it kind of validated before the sales rally, but that's huge. Like we go around and people are talking about, oh, EXP, this, that, all these other fly-by-night brands. To me, I knew we were #1, but I didn't know we eclipsed 2, 3, 4, and 5 combined. That's massive. And why are we silent about that?
We are monsters. RE/MAX is a monster.
Right. So we shouldn't be silent about that. That's part of our conversation. That's not the only reason, but it's one of the reasons. So I appreciate you all spending and dedicating your Friday mornings here. It sounds like there's enough interest. If there's 3 people that show up and I change your lives, I'm going to do it. So next time I'm in Florida, I'm going to do a workshop. It'll be at least 3 hours. I'm going to go through all this content, and it's a must attend in person. If I have to do it in 2 locations, I will. But I really believe that we need to change the narrative, okay, so that we can help people. That's the reality. Like I can't do it on a Zoom meeting when somebody's looking to buy a house. We have to have that face-to-face conversation, and we need all of our partners to be part of it. In New Jersey, we need our attorneys to be part of it to get us out of attorney review. We need our insurance agents in Florida to help us close deals. We need our lending partners to be part of the process, okay? We need them to be mortgage advisors, okay? To educate them about what the different options are and not assume that they know that. So thank you, everybody. Stay tuned. A lot of good information is coming down the pike for us.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that,
Thank you.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye. Have a great weekend.